Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. Be sure to check me out over on Rumble. There you'll find all of my stuff from YouTube, plus my political and social commentary and weekly current events, which YouTube frowns on. Links to my Rumble channel, as well as my other YouTube channels, and links to let you order my books are in the description of this video. If you enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. I welcome your comments, even if you disagree with me. Now, on with the video. Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. I'm doing an advanced Dungeons & Dragons advice video on other Dungeon Masters optional rules, things that I've encountered over the years. Before I get into this video, I'd like to tell you about my new book, The House Off Farago Road. It's now available on Amazon. It's by the author's name is H.L. Anderson. That's me. It's just a fun story about a house where the denizens are not quite normal. Mythological creatures and supernatural forces commingle with modern-day law enforcement and the criminal underworld. If the quirky weird piques your interest, check out The House Off Farago Road. Available at Amazon. Okay, into this one. Other Dungeon Masters optional rules. I started playing Advanced Dungeons & Dragons back in the 70s, and I started running it in 1979. In all that time, I have played with a number of other Dungeon Masters. A few were great, some really sucked, but most were okay. They were pretty good. Regardless of where they fall in those three categories, almost every Dungeon Master I've played with has opted to use rules unique to their game. And I'm not talking about, using... some of them allowed them to use, muskets, gunpowder, arquebuy, that kind of thing. Some allowed what I called wild style, which was, you started out as a god and worked your way up. It was crazy. For the most part, these dungeon masters confined such unique options to the character generation, and that's what I'm going to stick with today. How you run your game is not as important as the optional rules you use to create the characters. It's been said that there's no wrong way to play Dungeons and Dragons, and I really believe that. If your players are having fun and you're running a game that everybody enjoys, hey, knock yourself out. Okay? What I'm talking about here is unique options for character generation. Here we go. One Dungeon Master allowed every player character to automatically have 1/18 and roll for the rest. And that makes for more heroic characters, I guess. I'm not a big fan of that, but hey, one Dungeon Master allowed each player an automatic magic item as an inheritance, I guess. I don't like that myself, but, magic should be very rare. If Uncle Bob died in battle or whatever, and you recovered him and his body and his stuff, chances are back in those days you'd bury the items with him, the stuff he really liked. And a magic weapon, that was very common to bury weapons with them. That being said, some were passed down. I'm not saying they weren't, but to me that gives players too much of an advantage. That's just my opinion. I think player characters need to stand on their own 2 feet. One Dungeon Master allowed every player character 5 extra points to assign to their stats as desired, with 18 being the max. And that allows a little more flexibility. I don't do that, but I'm okay with it if somebody wants to. One Dungeon Master allowed players to adjust the stats on their character on a 1-for-2 basis. 1 point raised in one stat for 2 points taken from other stats. So if I wanted a high strength, I could add 1 to my strength and subtract 1 from intelligence and charisma. And if I wanted to add another 1 to strength, I'd take 1 from, wisdom and dexterity or whatever. You see what I'm saying? You can, I don't know why you would, but you can. That was what this guy allowed. Some Dungeon Masters restrict the classes and alignments available to their players. Some restrict the deities or the races. One particularly sexist and homophobic Dungeon Master that I recall required dudes to play men and girls to play women, and nobody could play gay or bisexual characters. Yeah, that dude was, he was a little out there. I prefer player characters to design their own characters. players to design their own characters. That's what I like. And if somebody wants to play a gay character, knock yourself out. I'm not gonna complain about it. One dungeon master created a table of what he called quirks and had each player roll on that table. These were personality or physical oddities of which their character was afflicted. Some were fairly benign, some were ridiculously crippling, some were actually beneficial. It was fair because you rolled randomly and they were just as many good things as bad things, and a lot of them were just neutral or just different, you know. A character could randomly end up claustrophobic, rich, poor, insane, a vegetarian, ambidextrous, an animal lover, or, you know, homosexual. It was all in good fun and was intended to make the characters more interesting. He was an excellent dungeon master, and his games were outstanding. I played in his game a number of times. I never got anything really crippling, but some of them were a little weird. Different to play, I'll just say that. One dungeon master required every player character to be related. You know, brother, sister, cousin, that kind of thing. This seemed to me like a clumsy way to get the player characters to meet. That's just my opinion. I mean, I suppose it gets the player characters to want to adventure together, to protect each other, and that's cool, but seems a bit like a chintzy way to do that. Another dungeon master required each player to run 2 characters in case one died. That one got a bit hectic. As for me, I allowed players to roll 4d6 for each stat and drop 1 of the die numbers. However, when the Unearthed Arcana came out, I started using the method in the back of that book. But now keep in mind, no matter what rules you decide to use, all the non-player characters use the exact same rules, the exact same methods. I restricted alignments only in so much as no evils and no chaotic neutrals. It's hard to get evil player characters to want to save the world. You know, it's hard to get evil characters to work together. That's the only reason for that. But we still had player arguments and things like that, so it didn't stop it. It just made it a lot easier on me as a dungeon master. As a dungeon master, you have a lot of stuff to keep track of. There's a lot of moving parts, and if you can eliminate one entire category of problems with one simple rule, amen. But don't just be careful what you do, because you can't go overboard with it. Other than the alignment restrictions, I prefer to let the players design and play the characters that they make. That's enough surprises for me. I didn't have anything else to go with that. So anyway, I hope this gives you some ideas, and I hope you enjoy my advice videos. I'm just an old hack wargamer who's been doing this a long freaking time. Any way I can use to share my wisdom, my experience with you guys, the younger generation of players and dungeon masters, hey, I'm all for that. Feel free to use and abuse what I tell you. You folks have a good one. God bless one and all. We elect cookie-cutter politicians every single election cycle. Yes men who maintain the status quo and do just enough to make us believe the system still works. Imagine, if you will, a president who actually tries to fix things. If you like action, political intrigue, and a righteous crusade, check out my political thriller, The Righteous President.